At this moment, both Yang Yi and the old man were stunned on the spot. Remove the patriarch from his position? Yang Yi was stunned for quite some time before he said, Miss Jibei, you can do that. She glanced at him. I can. Yang Yi was stunned speechless. Eldest young miss. The gray-robed old man was about to say something. However, Yi Jibei waved her hand. Return to the clan. As soon as she finished speaking, she ignored the old man and vanished into the distance with Yang Yi. The old man shook his head and sighed. Their eldest young miss was amazing in all aspects, and her only flaw was being too overbearing at times. Remove the patriarch. It only sounded easy. However, he was very well aware that if she was determined to do it, then it was really possible. The old man sighed once more and hurried after them. In the clouds, Yang Yi went to Yi Jibei's side. Miss Yi, it really isn't necessary to enter into conflict with your clan for me. She glanced at him and interrupted him. It's not entirely for you. Yang Yi was quite puzzled. Then why? Yi Jibei replied indifferently. I'm certain people in the War City and the outside world are aware that I'm taking you back to the clan. If my Yi clan chooses to abandon you because of the Leng clan now, what would the world think of my Yi clan? What would our branch families think of the main family? She looked up at the sky and continued. My father is old. Actually, she hadn't said something else. She was doing it because she'd experienced some things with Yang Yi, and she knew his strength better than the Yi clan. Could be said that both she and Xing Biqing weren't confident in being able to defeat Yang Yi. Yang Yi was a sword cultivator, a 3-world realm sword cultivator, and one who cultivated in the body too. He could kill 5-world realm experts at the 2-world realm, yet now he was at the 3-world realm, so how strong was he? Yi Jibei hadn't been acting rashly. She'd considered everything well, and she knew that while accepting Yang Yi would offend the Leng clan and her Yi clan would not fight to the death. Meanwhile, the Yi clan would gain an extraordinary genius. It was beneficial, very beneficial. It didn't take long for them to arrive at the Yi clan. The Yi clan was within a special barrier. It was a world that had been specially created, and while it was called a clan, it was more like a city. There were 2 old men waiting outside the city's gates. 2 more 5-world realm experts. It wasn't that the Yi clan had countless 5-world realm experts. It was because of Yi Jibei's own unique status. That was why the Yi clan had sent 5-world realm experts to welcome her. Yi Jibei led Yang Yi to the city gates, and the old men bowed slightly to her. Yi Jibei said, The Leng clan's people are still here? One of them nodded. He's still in a meeting with the patriarch. Yi Jibei asked, What are they discussing? The old man glanced at Yang Yi and was slightly hesitant. Yi Jibei's face instantly turned icy cold, and then she flicked a ray of blue light into the sky. The old men's expressions changed drastically when they witnessed this. One of them spoke with astonishment. Eldest young miss, you. Yi Jibei didn't say anything. She just gazed behind her. It didn't take long for a black-robed figure to appear there. The black-robed figure's robe was very wide and enveloped the person within it completely, so it was impossible to see the person's actual figure. However, the black-robed figure's aura was fully revealed before them. It wasn't the 5-world realm but the Lord realm. A true Lord realm expert. Yang Yi was quite shocked as well, and he wondered what she was planning. Meanwhile, the black-robed figure bowed slightly to her. Yi Jibei gazed at the 2 old men. Go gather everyone immediately, including the next patriarchs of the branch families. I have something to announce. The old man exchanged glances, and then one of them hesitated and was about to speak. But she suddenly walked over to him and said, I told you to go. Didn't you hear me? The old man was shocked. At this moment, he realized that she was serious. He didn't dare to challenge her authority. They bowed to her and left. Yi Jibei glanced into the distance and said, Aunt Luo, you'll take my side, right? The black-robed figure replied, What if I say no? Yi Jibei suddenly chuckled. That's great. In any case, I'm not interested in being the Yi clan's patriarch. The black-robed figure said, Are you trying to force us? Yi Jibei gazed at the black-robed figure. It's the Yi clan that's forcing me. Since you wish to foster me to become the next patriarch, and I have to bear responsibility for the clan's future. Fine, I accept. But I want authority now. I want full authority over the clan. The black-robed figure replied, It isn't time. Yi Jibei replied indifferently, I think it is. The black-robed figure spoke calmly. All of us will only take the side that's beneficial to the Yi clan. I'm only here because you're not a rash person, and I want to see why you wish to remove your father from his position just for an illegitimate child. Moreover, you even want to become enemies with the Lung clan for that. Yi Jibei nodded slightly. Then just watch and see. The black-robed figure replied, You've gone too far. You know the consequences if you can't provide a reasonable explanation. Yi Jibei chuckled. Of course. She gazed at Yang Yi. Let's go. She walked into the city. Yang Yi glanced up at the city. The patriarch? It's a position that brings many great things like authority, resources, and reputation, but isn't it a type of shackles too? It's best to be alone. One man, one sword. Yang Yi shook his head, grinned, and followed her into the city. Yi Jibei led Yang Yi to the main hall of the Yi clan. At this moment, no less than 100 people were gathered here. There were people from the branch families and main family. All of them were the core experts of the Yi clan. There were 3 chairs in the hall. A middle-aged man sat at the seat of the host. He had a calm and indifferent expression, and an elegant appearance. The middle-aged man was the current patriarch of the Yi clan, Yi Rushuan. A white-robed old man sat on Yi Rushuan's right. It was the Yi clan's grand elder, an absolute core figure of the clan. As for Yi Rushuan's left, it was a middle-aged man. He wasn't from the Yi clan. He was an elder of the Lung clan. Everyone gazed at Yi Jibei when they saw Yi Jibei's group of 3 walk in, but it didn't take long for them to gaze at Yang Yi. Yang Yi's face was calm, and he didn't say anything. Yi Jibei glanced at the others here. In the end, her gaze descended onto the elder from the Lung clan. I didn't expect to see someone from the Lung clan here. Yi Rushuan suddenly said, I asked Brother Leng Gu to stay. Yi Jibei glanced at her father. Brother Yi is a member of our clan. Now, I want him to return to our clan. No. Yi Rushuan shook his head. His identity hasn't been confirmed, so he isn't a member of our clan. Yi Jibei replied indifferently. I said he is, so he is. Yi Rushuan replied indifferently. I'm the patriarch right now. Yi Jibei walked over to Yi Rushuan, and then someone brought her a chair. She sat down and said, Just be frank. What did the Lung clan promise you? Meanwhile, the elder from the Lung clan smiled. Young Miss Yi, my Lung clan and the Yi clan have been on friendly terms, and we hope this friendship can last. Moreover, my patriarch has promised that when faced with a choice between the Yi clan and the East region's Lu clan, we will choose the Yi clan. Yi Jibei finally understood at this point. The Lung clan and the East region's Lu clan weren't irreconcilable enemies, but their interests were entangled. If the Lung clan took the Yi clan's side, it would obviously be extremely beneficial to the Yi clan. After all, the Xing clan and Lung clan had been just watching the Yi clan and Lu clan fight it out until now. Meanwhile, the Lung clan's elder smiled. Miss Yi, his origins are unknown, and he has killed many experts of my Lung clan. Everyone knows about that, so if my Lung clan doesn't do anything about it, I'm afraid it wouldn't be right. As a friend of my Lung clan, the Yi clan will definitely stand by our side. Right? Yi Rushuan stood up, and he glanced at Yi Jibei with slightly complicated emotions in his eyes. At most times, you only consider your own thoughts, but I view things from the angle of the clan as a whole. You're still young, and you aren't qualified to be the Yi clan's patriarch yet. As he spoke, he gazed at the black-robed figure behind Yi Jibei. What do you think, Elder Luo? The black-robed figure remained silent. Meanwhile, Yang Yi stepped forward. I think you're wrong. Everyone gazed at Yang Yi. The black-robed figure gazed at Yang Yi too. Yi Rushuan gazed at Yang Yi and spoke indifferently. I didn't ask you. Yang Yi walked over to Yi Jibei's side and smiled. I can't speak just because you didn't ask? Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings. I'm sure it's very common in the Yi clan and Leng clan to discard your own for the clan's own interests, especially when the person has no status or talent. As far as all of you are concerned, such members of the clan are just trash, and they are just a waste of resources. Right? He gazed at Yi Zhibei and grinned. Stop looking around. You are included too. Allow me to be honest, Miss Zhibei, if it wasn't due to certain things, would you even bring me back here? Would you go against your father, clan, and even the Lung clan for me? Yi Zhibei gazed at him in silence. Yang Yi smiled. Of course, I can't say that what you've done is wrong. After all, the clan's interests come first, right? But Yang Yi grinned at this point, but it was slightly cold. To be honest, I really look down on all of you. As far as all of you are concerned, benefits and interests are everything. It's even greater than the lives of your people. What are your people to you? They are your loved ones. Many are even linked to you by blood, but because their talent or strength is insufficient, they are worthless in the eyes of people like you who manage the entire clan, right? No, I should say there is no love in clans, and everything is based upon talent. If you have talent, the clan loves you. If you have no talent, perhaps your status in the clan is worse than a dog. Yi Rushuan gazed coldly at Yang Yi. Subdue him. It only took a moment for two experts at the Five-World Realm to appear behind Yang Yi. Yi Zhibei was about to say something when a sword howl resounded. Along with the sword howl, a sword flashed, and then the head of an old man flew up into the air. At this moment, the hall almost froze in silence. Yi Rushuan's hands were even trembling while disbelief filled his eyes. A Five-World Realm expert had been killed in an instant. Everyone gazed at Yang Yi with shock. This young man who was only at the Three-World Realm had actually killed a Five-World Realm expert in an instant. A Five-World Realm expert. While the Five-World Realm expert had lost his head, his soul had been able to escape at the critical moment. He gazed at Yang Yi while shock filled his eyes. That attack had been extremely swift. So swift that he hadn't been able to react. How could a Three-World Realm sword cultivator possibly attack so quickly? The old man wasn't the only one. The elder from the Lung clan couldn't maintain his calm either. They'd lost a Five-World Realm expert before this, but they didn't think it was Yang Ye's work. After all, Yang Yi had just been at the Two-World Realm then. A Two-World Realm expert killing a Five-World Realm expert. That was nonsense. However, the facts before him proved that this young man really could kill Five-World Realm experts, and he could do it in an instant. Yang Yi walked over to Yi Rushuan and said, I'm not done. Yang Yi gazed at the black-robed figure and continued, As a member of the Yi clan, I should be allowed to say a few words here, right? The black-robed figure fell silent for a moment and replied, Yes. The expression of the Lung clan's elder instantly turned extremely unsightly. That was no different than an acknowledgement of Yang Ye's identity. Of course, it was normal. Not to mention the Yi clan. Even the Lung clan would admit it without the slightest hesitation. How monstrous did someone have to be in order to kill a Five-World Realm expert at the Three-World Realm? Moreover, it was a sword cultivator too. If a clan had the protection of an extraordinary sword cultivator, then how terrifying would that be? After all, sword cultivators were usually much stronger than ordinary cultivators, and this young man was a sword and body cultivator. Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings, and everyone was looking at him. Their gazes at him were completely different now. Yang Yi seemed to have thought of something and shook his head. I don't feel like saying anything anymore. I, Yi Yang, am a member of the Yi clan, but not really. He gazed at Yi Zhibei and continued, Miss Zhibei, no matter what, I still have to thank you. I have something to say that you can consider. Try your best to make life better for all your clansmen and reduce the amount of injustice. He turned around and walked away once he finished speaking. However, he turned around and glanced at the elder from the Lung clan once he arrived at the door. I, Yang, am a disciple of the ancient sword sect, so if your clan wants revenge, then come find me at the ancient sword sect whenever you want. Ha ha! Suddenly, roaring laughter came from far away in the sky, and then a ray of sword energy shot through the sky and an old man appeared high above. A Lord Realm sword cultivator. The old man glanced at Yang Yi. You're the inner court disciple, Yang Yi? Yang Yi nodded. The old man said, I'm the Grand Elder of the ancient sword sect, the one with the greatest authority beneath the sect master. Now, I proclaim that you, Yi Yang, are officially an elite disciple of my ancient sword sect. If any Lord Realm expert dares to act against you, it's an act of aggression against the ancient sword sect. Even if you're assassinated, my ancient sword sect will have its revenge. He was clearly saying it for the elder from the Lung clan. Suddenly, the black-robed figure behind Yi Zhibei said, Elder Lung, go home. Tell your patriarch that Yi Yang is a member of my Yi clan, and my Yi clan will be responsible for his actions. From this moment onward, Yi Yang is a core disciple of my Yi clan, and his status is merely inferior to Zhibei while his treatment will be the same. Elder Lung fell silent for a short while and left. The Grand Elder of the ancient sword sect smiled. Kid, let's go. Where are you going? Meanwhile, the black-robed figure appeared before the Grand Elder. He's a disciple of my Yi clan, so he should naturally stay here. The Grand Elder glanced at the black-robed figure. Your Yi clan is being a little shameless. Earlier, you didn't want an illegitimate child from a branch family like him, and you planned to give him to the Lang clan for a favor. Now that you've seen his talent, you're acknowledging him instead? How can you be so shameless? The black-robed figure replied indifferently. He has the blood of the Yi clan within him, so he's a member of my Yi clan. The Grand Elder replied. He's an elite disciple of my ancient sword sect right now. The black-robed figure refused to back down. He's a core disciple of my Yi clan. They seem to be on the verge of fighting. Meanwhile, Yi Zhibei stepped forward. He's a disciple of the ancient sword sect and a member of my Yi clan. There is no conflict there. No conflict. The Grand Elder frowned slightly. There were members of all the clans in the ancient sword sect. So, there really wasn't any conflict. After all, they were in peaceful times right now, so the ancient sword sect would never go to war with any of the clans. After all, the desolate race was out there. After pondering deeply for a moment, the Grand Elder gazed at Yang Yi. What do you think, kid? Yang Yi smiled. I'm an elite disciple of the ancient sword sect. The Grand Elder nodded slightly upon hearing this. Good. Of course, you're a member of the Yi clan too. My ancient sword sect doesn't have such strict requirements, and even if it does, we can make an exception for you. An exception. Once they were certain that Yang Yi had gone to the Yi clan with Yi Zhibei, the ancient sword sect had immediately sent him, because the ancient sword sect knew about some of the incidents in the war dimension. This inner court disciple of theirs was much more monstrous than they'd imagined. They couldn't let him go. The Grand Elder said, Do you want to return to the sect with me right now? Yang Yi was about to agree when Yi Zhibei spoke abruptly. He has to return to the war dimension. The war dimension. The Grand Elder pondered deeply for a moment and nodded. True. Yang Yi gazed at Yi Zhibei. Why? She replied. We only have 3 days. If we don't return in 3 days, the consequences will be severe. Yang Yi frowned as he wasn't aware of such rules. He didn't want to return to the war dimension. He just wanted to return to the ancient sword sect and help Sword Scroll get back her main body. Yang Yi wanted to say more, but Yi Zhibei suddenly sent him a voice transmission. The rules of the war dimension cannot be broken. Otherwise, it's very likely that you'll be removed from the war dimension, and they may even request the ancient sword sect to expel you. It's not a place that anyone can enter and leave as they please. Even the Xing clan's Xing Biqing has to obey those rules. If you want to leave, you can use other methods to accomplish that. But you must return with me for now. Yang Yi glanced at her, and she seemed absolutely serious. Yang Yi felt quite speechless. In the end, he nodded. He was an elite disciple of the ancient sword sect now, so he wasn't in that much of a rush. The Grand Elder gave Yang Yi a golden talisman before leaving on his sword. As for the Yi clan, it immediately got him an abode in the city. Moreover, they sent him a spatial ring too. Within it was a Lord Realm inner core and 150 world crystals. According to Yi Zhibei, it was what core disciples received, and they received it twice a year. It was very abundant. Yang Yi didn't refuse it and took it all. The Yi clan wouldn't be willing to let him refuse anyway. The day before they left, Yi Jibei brought Yang Yi to a mountain wall at the rear mountains of the Yi clan. An old man was seated cross-legged there, and he had his back to them. Yi Jibei bowed slightly to the old man and gazed at Yang Yi, the Yi clan's ancestor. He wanted to meet you. Meet me? Yang Yi gazed at the old man. Meanwhile, the old man spoke abruptly. Your foundation is very strong and solid. You're suppressing your cultivation. Suppressing his cultivation. Yang Yi nodded. I am. The old man said, earlier you said that clans regard its interests as the most important. You think that is wrong. Yang Yi shook his head. As far as I'm concerned, it is wrong, but others think it is right. The old man asked, why do you think it's wrong? Yang Yi replied, if a clan only considers everything based on its own interests, it would lack familial bonds and emotions. A clan like that is icy cold, and its clansmen will have no sense of belonging or pride for the clan. Most importantly, how we do things and what we do will always be done based on benefits and interests. Of course, there is a benefit to this, and it will allow the clan to remain prosperous. However, such a clan is too icy cold. Just like me, I have no sense of belonging to the Yi clan, and as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter whether I'm part of the Yi clan. Yi Jibei glanced at him and remained silent. The old man remained silent for a long time before he said, you're very frank. Jibei is very young, and she can't deter some people. So help her. Both of you can decide what happens to the Yi clan in the future. Yang Yi spoke solemnly. I'm not interested in the Yi clan, or the ancient sword sect. The old man said, but you need us. You will have an invisible barrier of protection while you're part of the Yi clan and ancient sword sect. Otherwise, the Leng clan will immediately send a Lord Realm expert, or even an expert above the Lord Realm to annihilate you. Yang Yi fell silent. Just as the old man had said, if the Leng clan was determined to kill him, was his current strength enough to keep him alive? Meanwhile, the old man continued, as far as my Yi clan is concerned, your disinterest toward the position of patriarch is a good thing. You don't have to do much. Just take Jibei's side when it's required. In return for that, you'll get the same resources that Jibei receives. I'm sure the ancient sword sect wants the same too. A clan needs a guardian. The ancient sword sect needs one, and my Yi clan needs one too. And you are perfect to play that role. Yang Yi fell silent. He didn't refuse or agree. After all, he was Yang Yi, not Yi Yang. As for the old man, he left without saying another word. Meanwhile, Yi Jibei suddenly said, something has happened in the war dimension. We must return immediately. Something happened in the war dimension. Yang Yi asked solemnly, what happened there? She explained, it isn't the war dimension but War City. The city has been breached. The city has been breached. Yang Yi asked, the demon race? Yi Jibei nodded. The war dimension is gathering all the human cultivators, so we must return immediately. Yang Yi asked, what happens when the city is breached? She replied indifferently, many will die and many will be enslaved. Yang Yi asked, don't the higher-ups do anything about it? She replied indifferently, so long as it's within the rules, they won't do anything. For example, if the demons that attacked the city weren't at the Lord Realm, then it's our own fault for being weak. All battles within the war dimension are real, and they are not a game. She turned around and left. Yang Yi glanced off into the distance. It was brutal. Needless to say, the way the war dimension fostered them was quite brutal. But it was normal. If it wasn't brutal, and if they were allowed to live peaceful lives as they previously had, then how could the Eternal Kingdom fight the desolate race? The Eternal Kingdom had been lucky to survive because the sprite progenitor had interfered. Yet now, Eternal Kingdom didn't have the sprite progenitor. Moreover, they didn't know which side the sprite progenitor would help. In the main hall of the Yi clan, there were only two people here, Yi Jibei and Yi Rushuan. Yi Rushuan asked, is he really an illegitimate child of my Yi clan? Yi Jibei replied, is it still important now? He shook his head and smiled. It isn't indeed. Now you're the Yi clan's patriarch. Congratulations. Yijibei turned around and walked away. She suddenly stopped at the doorway and said, "He was right. The clan only cares about its interests and there are no familial bonds here. If I hadn't revealed formidable talent all those years ago, you would have never brought me and my mother to the Yi clan, right?" Yi Rushuan lowered his head slightly and fell silent. A wisp of ridicule curled up on the corners of Yi Jibei's mouth, and then she left the hall. It didn't take long for them to leave the Yi clan. Now, the entire Eternal Kingdom and its powers knew of a name, Yi Yang, a 3-world realm expert who'd killed a 5-world realm expert. Could be said that Yang Yi had allowed the name Yi Yang to instantly shock the entire Eternal Kingdom. Yang Yi and Yi Jibei returned to the war dimension, and the city had fallen when they arrived. Demons filled the city, and it was occupied by the demons now. As for the resources owned by the humans, it had been taken by the demon beasts as well. Yang Yi and Yi Jibei exchanged glances outside the city. They hadn't expected that the city would actually fall while they had left for just a few days. Meanwhile, a woman appeared by their side. It was Xing Biqing. She glanced at them. "Come with me." Xing Biqing led them to a boundless mountain range, and Yang Yi saw over 100 human experts there. Most of them were severely injured. Xing Biqing led them to a huge rock. Meanwhile, the others gazed at them. Yang Yi saw 2 people in the crowd. It was Lu Yunxian and Xue Yiren. They hurried over when they saw Yang Yi. Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings and asked, "Emoya isn't with you?" Xue Yiren spoke solemnly. "As she may still be trapped in the city." "Trapped in the city?" Yang Yi frowned. "She's still in the city?" Xue Yiren nodded. "The demon race suddenly attacked and breached the city, and she wasn't with us. When we escaped, we weren't able to find her anywhere. And someone said she's still in the city." "Still in the city." Yang Yi glanced in the direction of War City. He thought for a moment, and then he gazed at Xing Biqing. "I'll go get her. Don't be rash." Xing Biqing said, "Brother Yang, the demon race has occupied the entire city. It's very dangerous to go there right now." Meanwhile, a young man appeared by Xing Biqing's side. He nodded to Xing Biqing and Yi Jibei, and then he said, "Miss Biqing is correct. The demon race isn't weak, especially the one called Yao Yi. He's so strong that even the joint forces of Miss Biqing and I weren't able to defeat him." Yi Jibei asked, "What happened?" The young man laughed bitterly. "The demon race's attack was the same as always, and they retreated a short while later. However, we didn't expect them to suddenly return. Moreover, their forces were much, much stronger than before. They caught us off guard. It's our fault. We've been at peace for so many years, and it's to the point that we became careless." Xing Biqing nodded. "We were careless. Mo Yun, did you notify Lung Ao and Lu Ju?" The man, Mo Yun, nodded. "I have. They are on the way back, and they'll be here in an hour." Xing Biqing nodded slightly. She was about to speak when a man suddenly dashed over from afar. It didn't take long for him to arrive before them. The man had quite an unsightly expression on his face. Xing Biqing asked, "What is it?" The man replied solemnly, "The demon race is clearing out the human experts in the city. They are serious." Meanwhile, Yang Yi turned around and walked toward the city. Yi Jibei and Xing Biqing hurriedly obstructed his path. They were about to speak when Yang Yi said, "Miss Mo, you can't be considered a friend, but we are still from the same sect, and we did get to the war dimension together. I don't think I can just stand by idly and watch her die. So I must go." Yang Yi immediately vanished on his sword. Lu Yunxian and Xue Yiren exchanged glances, and then they vanished into the sky on their swords as well. They were headed toward War City. Xing Biqing watched them leave, and no one knew what she was thinking. It didn't take long for Yang Yi to arrive at the city's entrance. He was about to enter when he suddenly looked behind. A short while later, 2 rays of light descended before him. It was Lu Yunxian and Xue Yiren. Yang Yi thought for a moment and said, "Cover us when we get out." They were about to say something when Yang Yi said, "I can sneak in." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished into thin air. Both of them scanned the area with their divine sense, but they couldn't find a trace of him. They exchanged glances and saw shock in each other's eyes. Yang Yi entered the city without making a sound. There were human corpses all over the city. They were all elites chosen from the outside world. Yet now they were all dead here. As he gazed at those corpses, Yang Yi started to feel a little worried for the desolate race. He could imagine how strong the humans and demons who survived the war dimension would be. This time, the Eternal Kingdom really planned to fight the desolate race to the death. He knew the desolate race wasn't ordinary either. It was a mysterious race, and the desolate Emperor's strength was simply unfathomable. They had almost annihilated the Eternal Kingdom all those years ago, so could the Eternal Kingdom stop them now? Actually, no matter which side won, the living beings of the entire universe would suffer. Yang Yi shook his head and vanished into the distance. With the sword domain to conceal him, no demon discovered his presence all along the way, and it didn't take long for his divine sense to locate Emoya. She was in the ruins of a house. At this moment, she was all alone in a room, and her right arm was gone. There were also numerous deep injuries on her, so deep her internal organs were visible. Moreover, her countenance was extremely pale. Obviously, she was severely injured. As soon as he entered the room, Emoya leaped to her feet, but she relaxed slightly upon seeing Yang Yi and said, "What are you doing here?" Yang Yi glanced at her stomach. She'd clearly been clawed there, and there was a very deep claw injury there while blood was ceaselessly seeping out from it. Yang Yi walked over to her. "Lay down!" She glanced at him and did as he said. Yang Yi placed his right hand on her injury, and then countless strands of primordial violet energy surged into her. A short while later, her injury started healing rapidly. It was so fast that it stunned Emoya. She only recovered from her shock after Yang Yi removed his palm, and then she gazed at him. What profound energy was that? It was actually so terrifying. Yang Yi didn't answer her question and said, "Rest for a while, then we'll leave." He flicked a world crystal to her. She glanced at it and said, "Did you come here just to rescue me?" Yang Yi asked, "Did you think I came here to have fun?" She spoke solemnly. "Why?" Yang Yi shook his head. "Just save it. Hurry up and recuperate. Recover your profound energy, and then leave here with me." She glanced at him and didn't say anything. She just started absorbing the energy within the world crystal. Once she was done, her profound energy had recovered completely. Yang Yi said, "Let's go." She was astounded. "We're leaving just like that?" Yang Yi replied with a question. "Then what did you expect?" He was naturally able to send her into the primordial pagoda, but he only allowed those closest to him to enter it. It wasn't that he didn't trust Emoya, it was that it was best to be careful when it came to some things. He couldn't allow his identity to be exposed. Otherwise, both the demon race and human race would hunt him down. Emoya thought for a moment and said, "We're going out just like this?" Yang Yi nodded. "We'll charge out together. Make it quick. We have to get out before they can react." Emoya wanted to say more, but he just grabbed her wrist and transformed into a ray of light that shot up into the air and flashed toward the city walls. At this moment, all the demon beasts in the city looked in their direction, and then some demons shot up into the air and charged at the ray of sword energy. Unfortunately, it was too fast, and it only took an instant to leave the city. However, right at this moment, a huge fist suddenly slammed against it and blasted it back into War City. Yang Yi stopped in midair within the city, and Emoya had a solemn expression on her face as she stood behind him. There was a young man in front of them. The young man's upper body was bare, and he only had a pair of black trousers on. He seemed extremely robust. Of course, he was no person. It was a demon. The man glanced at Yang Yi and said, "Interesting. It's the first time I'm seeing someone leave the city out in the open." "What? You want to challenge my demon race?" Yang Yi grinned. "I just want to take a friend out of the city. That's all. Outside." The man chuckled. "It depends on whether you have the ability to do so." Yang Yi nodded. "I understand." As he spoke, he gazed at Emoya. "You leave first." She was stunned. She glanced at the surroundings and was about to speak when Yang Yi said, "Go." She had quite a strange expression on her face. and she wondered if Yang Yi hadn't noticed how many demons were staring at them. Leave? How? Yang Yi said, just go. She hesitated for a moment and nodded, and then she walked toward the city gates. The young man's eyes narrowed slightly, and he waved his right hand. A demon beast immediately charged at Emoya. Emoya made a light grasping motion when she saw it charge at her, and a sword appeared in her grasp. She was about to attack when a flying sword flashed by her eyes. Hiss! The demon's head flew up into the air. Blood sprayed out like a magnificent fountain. This scene shocked all the demons here. The young man frowned. He'd seen Yang Ye's attack, but it was too quick. So quick that he hadn't been able to stop it at all. It was too swift. The young man's face became much more solemn. Emoya glanced at Yang Yi and continued toward the city's gates. Countless demon beasts watched with a ferocious glow in their eyes. If that human were to just swagger out of the city, it would be a huge humiliation to the demon race. The young man gazed at Yang Yi. Suddenly, he raised his hand, and then numerous four-world realm demon beasts leaped up and charged at Emoya. At the same time, the young man shot at Yang Yi, and a wave of powerful pressure instantly enveloped Yang Yi. However, along with a ray of sword energy, the young man was blasted all the way out of the city. Meanwhile, the demon beasts' bodies were still charging at Emoya, but their heads were gone. The headless demon beasts charged at her while spraying blood all over their path. Countless demons were horrified by the sight of this. All the demon beasts hadn't been able to see how those demons had lost their heads. Emoya glanced at Yang Yi again, and then he quickly strode out of the city. This time, no demon beast obstructed her path. However, right when she was about to leave the city, a one-armed man appeared above the city wall. The demon beasts lowered themselves before the man. Emoya's face instantly became solemn because the one-armed man felt extremely dangerous to her. The one-armed man glanced at Yang Yi. Among the human experts are the Yi clan's Yi Jibei, the Xing clan's Xing Biqing, the Lang clan's Lang Ao, the Lu clan's Lu Ju, the ancient sword sect's Gunye, and two other independent cultivators. But you are none of them. Yang Yi nodded slightly. The ancient sword sect. Yi Yang. The ancient sword sect. The one-armed man glanced at the corpses in the surroundings and said, a life for a life. That's what you humans like to say. I think it makes sense. What do you think? Yang Yi smiled. You must first realize that you were trying to kill us, and it wasn't the other way around. I was just exercising my right to self-defense, and that isn't illegal, is it? The one-armed man grinned. I think we should just fight. Yang Yi nodded. Same here. The one-armed man took a step forward. At this moment, it felt like the area shook before him. A moment later, a wave of powerful pressure swept out from him. A peak 5 world realm demon beast. The one-armed man slammed a punch at Yang Yi from afar. The space between them rippled while powerful strands of energy pierced through space and swept down toward Yang Yi. Yang Yi was visibly moved. The might of this punch made him feel like the world was pressing down upon him. It was very overbearing and powerful. Yang Yi didn't retreat. He took a step forward instead and swung his sword. 9 swings with the sword domain. Once the final swing descended, hiss! A huge rift suddenly appeared in the air above the battlefield. Yang Ye's attack had sliced space open, and it had sliced open the might of the man's punch as well. The man's eyes narrowed slightly from the sight of this. He was about to attack when 2 flying swords shot at him. They were extremely fast to the point he hadn't even been able to react before they cut through the sides of his throat. However, they hadn't been able to cut through his skin. The one-armed man had forcefully resisted this attack. Yang Yi frowned slightly, and he summoned the swords back into the sword gourd. The one-armed man wiped his throat. While there was no blood there were 2 marks there. A moment of silence ensued, and then the one-armed man suddenly charged at Yang Yi. Meanwhile, Yang Yi flicked a huge seal at the one-armed man. The universe seal. The seal contained the strength to destroy 5 worlds. The one-armed man didn't try to dodge away from this, and he just slammed his fist at the seal. Bang! Their attacks exploded apart on collision. The one-armed man was pushed backward repeatedly while Xianxia's universe seal was blasted away as well, and it was almost blasted off into the sky. But it didn't take long for the seal to return to Xiangyi. At the same time, Xiangyi vanished on the spot. A moment later, a sword slashed down at the one-armed man from above. Xiangyi didn't use Executor, but this time he used his bloodline. With the power of his bloodline, the strength of his attacks rose by another level. The one-armed man wasn't afraid of him at all and just slammed a punch at him. Bang! Xiangyi's sword descended, and the one-armed man was blasted around 300 m back. Meanwhile, Xiangyi was blasted away as well, but it only took a moment for a huge seal to slam down from above the one-armed man. Bang! The one-armed man was slammed to the ground. As soon as that happened, Xiangyi appeared before him. At the same time, 2 flying swords arrived before him. Bang! 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 Along with a few explosions, the one-armed man was blasted out of the city. Meanwhile, a few rays of sword energy shot out of the city, and they were so fast that all of them struck the one-armed man. Bang! 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 Along with multiple explosions, the one-armed man was pushed back repeatedly. When the final ray of sword energy vanished, he was over 1 kilometer away, and there were no less than 10 bloody injuries on him. Obviously, his body wasn't capable of fully resisting Xiangyi's attacks. At this moment, Xiangyi and Imoya were outside the city and were standing at its entrance. But there were countless demon beasts eyeing them ferociously from the surroundings. While the strength Xiangyi revealed was extremely formidable, it was obvious that they didn't want to just let Xiangyi and Imoya go. If they were allowed to leave, wouldn't the demon race be utterly humiliated? It was a slap to their face. Xiangyi glanced at the demons in the surroundings and said, "You don't want me to leave? Then bring it." Bang! The one-armed man suddenly shot at Xiangyi, and a wave of powerful energy erupted like a volcano, causing the world to shake before it. Xiangyi grinned at the sight of this, but it was an icy cold arc on his lips. A moment later, he drew his sword and swung it, and his sword struck directly against the one-armed man's fist. As soon as they collided, the space here shook violently, and then it started to crack apart all around them. Meanwhile, Xiangyi and the one-armed man hadn't moved backward at all. They were locked in combat. However, the space around them was trembling violently and seemed as if it would collapse at any moment. Xiangyi and the one-armed man's gazes met, and then Xiangyi stomped his right foot down. Hiss! Xiangyi's sword sliced through the one-armed man's fist. However, as soon as it did that, the one-armed man pulled his hand back and slammed his body at Xiangyi. A head-on collision with brute force. Xiangyi was facing a powerful demon beast, so he would naturally not go head-on against his opponent with just his physical body. At the instant the one-armed man slammed himself at Xiangyi, Xiangyi had moved sideways and dodged it. At the same time, 2 flying swords shot out from the sword gourd. Hiss! Hiss! The 2 flying swords left many bloody marks on the one-armed man's body. However, none of them were lethal. Xiangyi put his sword away and glanced at the surroundings. At this moment, the one-armed man and the other demons were looking at him, and there was vicious killing intent in their eyes. Xiangyi's gaze gradually became icy cold from the sight of this. "I'll ask you one last time. Are you going to let me go?" Because of Snowy, Zir, Arya, Oxy, and the others, he never had any adverse feelings toward demon beasts. So, he never took the initiative to slaughter them and take their inner cores. However, just as he'd always said, if humans tried to kill him, he would kill humans. If demons tried to kill him, he would kill demons. The demons remained silent, but their auras swept out and locked onto Xiangyi and Imoya. Obviously, they'd given him their answer. Xiangyi nodded, and then he walked toward the city. "Fine, I'll stay. Since you want to play, I'll play with you." Xiangyi walked into the city with his sword in hand, and the one-armed man wasn't too far away. Xiangyi's gaze descended onto the man. At this moment, the one-armed man was staring at Xiangyi, and then he suddenly stomped his right foot down when Xiangyi was around 30 m away from him. Bang! He shot up into the sky, and his figure seemed to turn ethereal. It didn't take long for a huge pitch-black wolf to appear before Yang Yi. A primal demon wolf, Emoya exclaimed with shock. The primal demon wolf in the sky gazed coldly at Yang Yi. Human, you've forced me to show my true form. Yang Yi glanced at the primal demon wolf and was about to attack, but he suddenly frowned. Are you sure? A moment of silence ensued, and then Yang Yi nodded. All right. Boom. As soon as he said that, a ray of golden light shot up into the air. At the same time, a dragon roar resounded through the city. A colossus appeared above the city. It was so huge that it practically covered half the city. Moreover, a strand of powerful dragon pressure rained down from above, causing countless demons to shudder. A primal true dragon. The entire demon race was stunned by its appearance. It was a real primal true dragon. The primal demon wolf stared at the dragon. You're a demon of my demon race. So, however, the dragon didn't waste its breath on him and just charged at the primal demon wolf. The entire sky shook before it. Boom! Countless demons watched as the dragon slammed the wolf away. But that wasn't the end of it. The dragon's huge tail swept forward and swept the wolf over 10 kilometers away. However, the wolf counterattacked as well. Just like that, they entered into battle in the sky. While the dragon was at the 4-world realm, it wasn't any weaker to the primal demon wolf who was at the 5-world realm. Not only that, it even suppressed the wolf. The dragon's body was clearly much stronger than the wolf. It was because they were of a different rank. Emoya suddenly asked, Is that dragon yours? Yang Yi glanced at her and replied, It's a friend of mine. A friend. As far as Yang Yi was concerned, the dragon and the others were all his friends. Demon beast and human friends. It was actually not rare. However, it was quite inconceivable for a human to be friends with a primal true dragon. After all, the dragons were extremely proud, and it was especially so for a primal true dragon. They were proud to the bone. As far as Emoya was concerned, it was absolutely impossible for a primal true dragon to be friends with a human. Meanwhile, the dragon had completely suppressed the wolf, and victory was perhaps just a matter of time. The 4-world realm against the 5-world realm. Actually, Yang Yi could kill the primal demon wolf. However, he couldn't expose too much of his strength. Otherwise, killing the wolf would be absolutely easy, just like how he hadn't even used Executor until now. If he used Executor, he could definitely take the wolf's head with absolute ease. Unfortunately, he was restrained by many things here, so he couldn't use his full strength. Bang! Suddenly, an explosion resounded, and then the wolf crashed down from midair and slammed into the ground outside the city. The dragon shrunk and returned to Yang Yi's side. Yang Yi asked, What do you think? The dragon shook its head. Too weak. He wasn't enough for a proper battle. The dragon entered the primordial pagoda after it finished speaking. Not enough. Yang Yi shook his head and grinned. He felt that the dragon sounded very close to Arya. Arya. That little fellow was much more terrifying than the dragon. If she were here, the wolf would probably be beaten up so much that it would start to question reality. Yang Yi glanced at the wolf who had returned to human form and asked, Does the demon race still want to play? The wolf stared at Yang Yi, and a wisp of blood flowed out slowly from the corner of his mouth. Suddenly, a voice came from above the city wall. Since we're playing, we should have lots of fun. Yang Yi looked over, and he saw a man with a pair of horns on his head standing on the city walls. The man was in human form with a pair of horns on his head, and he wore a loose ink green robe while his arms were hidden within his sleeves. Yang Yi glanced at the man and nodded. I'll accompany you to the end. The man suddenly vanished. Bang! Yang Yi was blasted over 3 kilometers away from the city. Meanwhile, the man with the horns was standing where Yang Yi had been a moment ago. Yang Yi glanced at his stomach. At this moment, his entire body had cracked open. Blood was spraying out of him. Yang Yi wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth and looked up at the man with the horns. He'd finally encountered an extraordinary genius. His spirits soared. Yang Yi twisted his right foot lightly against the ground. Hiss! A ray of sword energy flashed. The man frowned slightly, and he dodged backward. As soon as he did that, two flying swords suddenly shot through the spot he'd been standing on. Meanwhile, the young man raised his hand and slammed a punch forward. It just happened to slam against a sword. Boom! An explosion resounded, and then the man was pushed around 30 m back. However, two more flying swords shot at him before he could even stop himself. It was a perfect chain of attacks. He wasn't given even a moment to catch his breath. The man frowned slightly, and then he gently pushed both his palms down. Bang! A wave of invisible force suddenly erupted from the space around him, and it instantly blasted the swords away. A moment later, he took a stride forward and swung a punch. Bang! This punch caused the clouds in the sky to instantly vanish without a trace. It wasn't just the clouds. Even the air in a huge area had been sucked away, and only a void was left behind. At this moment, a solemn expression appeared on Xianxia's face. The strength contained within this punch was something he'd only seen from a single person, and that was Arya. Only Arya could accomplish this with pure physical strength. Xianxia didn't dare act carelessly. A sheath appeared in his left grasp, and then he drew his sword and swung it. In an instant, he drew and swung his sword 10 times. 10 overlapped attacks with the sword domain. At the instant he completed the final swing, the space in the surroundings suddenly froze. Crack! A moment later, it exploded apart and formed a huge pitch-black hole in space. Boom! Their attacks swept against each other within the black hole. In an instant, the black hole surged while countless strands of dark matter trembled and exploded apart. The powerful force of the collision almost obliterated the city. However, at the critical moment, a strand of mysterious energy enveloped the city and saved it from destruction. In the black hole, sword howls and explosions resounded incessantly. At this moment, the entire war dimension was shaking. Just like that, around an hour passed before the black hole calmed down. Xianxia and the man were standing opposite each other with around 30 m between them. Suddenly, two flying swords shot out from Xianxia's waist. Hiss! Hiss! The flying swords were extremely fast and instantly arrived before the man. However, the man reacted quickly, and he dodged to the side and swung a punch before they even arrived. His fist was an all-round attack, and it covered an entire area. The punch blasted Xianxia's flying swords away, but another sword descended from above him. This sword wasn't Executor, and it was just an ordinary sword. Besides, when he killed the old man in the House of Indulgence, Xianxia had never used Executor in the war dimension, nor did he dare to use it. It was too shocking, and it may expose his identity. The man remained calm when facing this attack, and he just tapped his finger forward. The muscles throughout his body bulged in an instant, and a strand of powerful energy erupted from the horns on his head. Bang! A rumbling explosion resounded, and then Xianxia was blasted backward by over 1 kilometer. Meanwhile, the pitch-black expanse of space around them exploded apart again. The man was about to attack again when Xianxia suddenly vanished. The man frowned slightly and slammed a punch forward. Pure strength. Needless to say, the man's strength wasn't any weaker to Arya. As far as Xianxia was concerned, if Arya fought this man, then Arya would have a slightly higher chance at winning. After all, Arya's strength made his heart palpitate. But the man's strength was only terrifying to him. While the man hadn't returned to his true form, Arya had never done so either. Moreover, who knew what Arya's true form was? Or how terrifying it was? Xianxia had arrived before the man, and he swung his sword. This time it was the sword precursor. After 10 swings, one more swing followed them. 11 swings. 11 overlapped attacks with the sword domain. The world dimmed down before it, and Xianxia's face instantly warped because he was enduring extreme pain. The man clenched both his fists when facing this attack. Boom! A moment later, a wave of monstrous pressure swept out from within him. At the same time, his fists slammed forward from behind the wave of pressure. This punch slammed directly against Xianxia's final swing. Bang! Sword and fist immediately split apart upon coming into contact. Xianxia was blasted away while the man suffered the same. He was blasted all the way into the city, and space was instantly obliterated in his wake. They were equally matched in this collision. Once the man stopped himself, he looked up at Xianxia from within the city. I can sense that you haven't gone all out. You seem to be worried about something? Or do you think I have no right to face your full strength? My full strength? Xianxia wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth and cracked a smile. If I use my full strength, I'm afraid that I'll slaughter everything in this city. The young man glanced at Xianxia when he heard him. Really? Xianxia grinned, and then he tapped his right foot against the ground. Hiss! He transformed into a ray of light that shot forward. At the moment Xianxia vanished, the young man suddenly stretched out a hand and made a grasping motion. He immediately grasped the tip of Xianxia's sword. Xianxia twisted his sword with both hands. Hiss! The sword twisted free of the young man's grasp and stabbed against his chest. But the sword couldn't pierce through him at all. The young man's body had forcefully resisted the attack. Xianxia immediately changed his attack and swung his sword horizontally against the young man's neck. Clang! A clear and loud clang resounded, and then Xianxia's sword shook and was bounced back. Meanwhile, the young man pressed forward and slammed his fist at Xianxia. Bang! Xianxia was blasted 300 m back. At the instant Xianxia was pushed back, two swords shot at the young man's neck. However, they had merely sliced half an inch deep before he grabbed them, rendering them immobile. Suddenly, a sword shot at the man's forehead. The young man frowned slightly, and he retreated around 30 m back. Meanwhile, he hurled the swords at Xianxia. Hiss! Hiss! The swords shot at Xianxia. There was no sword intent or sword energy within them, but they had pure strength and speed. They were still extremely powerful. Meanwhile, the sword gourd trembled by Xianxia's waist, and then the swords flew back into it. The young man glanced at the gourd on Xianxia's waist and said, You have many divine treasures. Xianxia shrugged and glanced at the surroundings. He couldn't sense any auras in the surroundings, but that didn't mean there was no one there. It represented that the people in the surroundings possessed strength that far surpassed his own. They may even be Lord Realm experts or experts above the Lord Realm. If he used the myriad world diagram to lock down the area, the young man before him would definitely return to his true form. Moreover, the people watching from the shadows were likely to take action as well. At that time, even if he could kill this guy, he wouldn't be able to escape. Xianxia shook his head and smiled a short while later. Why think so much about it? I'll just kill him first. As soon as he thought up to this point, Xianxia waved his right hand, and the myriad sword diagram appeared. Right when Xianxia was about to activate it and lock down the area, around 100 auras descended from the distant sky. Xianxia looked over and saw Xianxia's group. Meanwhile, countless demons emerged from the city. They surrounded Xianxia and the other human cultivators. War would break out at any moment. The young man before him nodded slightly. You're all here. Xianxia walked over to Xianxia's side and said, His name is Yao Qing. He's the second strongest expert in the demon race's younger generation. The second? Xianxia asked. There's someone stronger? Xianxia nodded. That demon is slightly stronger than him. However, I've never seen him in battle, and I finally witnessed him in battle when they attacked the city. He was very strong. Xianxia shot a glance into the city. Now, the hidden geniuses throughout War Dimension had started to show themselves. Meanwhile, Xianxia said, Let's retreat for now. As she spoke, she was about to leave with the others, but Yao Qing suddenly pointed at Xianxia. Everyone else can leave, but you can't. Xianxia and the others' expressions instantly turned gloomy. Xianxia was about to say something when Xianxia suddenly tapped his finger forward, and the myriad world diagram enveloped the surroundings. Or to be more precise, it enveloped Yao Qing and the other demons outside the city. In the myriad world diagram, Xianxia smiled ferociously. Primordial pagoda. Sword scroll. Help me seal off everything within this area. Don't let anyone's divine sense enter. As soon as he finished speaking, an ethereal pagoda appeared, and then countless rays of golden light swept out and enveloped the area. The primordial pagoda was a quasi-super divine treasure. so the divine senses of most people couldn't enter this area without being detected now, especially when it was assisted by sword scroll. It could be said that unless someone broke into the area by force, then the people outside would never be able to witness the scene in here. Of course, it wasn't absolutely certain. However, Yang Yi couldn't be bothered about that right now. He planned to kill first. It was part of his terrible temper. Yao Qing gazed at Yang Yi and spoke indifferently. You finally plan to fight seriously? Come. Let me see how. Suddenly, a wave of mysterious energy enveloped the area. The sword domain. At this moment, the space throughout the myriad sword diagram was enveloped within the sword domain. Yao Qing's expression changed when he noticed this. At this moment, the other demons had quite solemn expressions on their faces. Obviously, they sensed danger. Suddenly, two flying swords struck Yao Qing's neck on both sides. Hiss! The swords sliced half an inch deep and caused blood to spray. Yao Qing's expression changed drastically, and a powerful aura swept out from within him. His body started to expand, and he was about to return to his true form. But right at this moment, Yang Yi appeared before him, and then a sword slashed down. At the critical moment, Yao Qing stopped his transformation. Because as far as he was concerned, he could resist Yang Ye's attack with his current physical defenses. Because he'd done so countless times before. However, he hadn't thought of the fact that they weren't outside anymore, and Yang Ye's sword wasn't the same sword he'd been using previously. It was Executor, the number 1 sword of Eternal Kingdom. Yang Ye's sword descended, and Yao Qing didn't dodge at all. Moreover, his true form had appeared. However, right when his true form was about to be completed, the sword descended. Hiss! It was like a chopper slicing through tofu. It went all the way down. Countless demons in the surroundings watched as the sword sliced Yao Qing's true form into two. He'd been sliced into two. Yao Qing's corpse fell to the ground. His eyes were wide open, and he could be said to have died with everlasting regret. Even at the moment of his death, he couldn't figure out why there was such a huge difference in this sword cultivator's strength once they were in here. It could be described as being a difference as huge as the gap between the heavens and the earth. As for the other demons, they were completely stunned. He was dead? Just like that? It didn't take long for them to recover from their shock, and they were about to flee. However, two flying swords soundlessly appeared before them. In just a few breaths of time, the 30 or so demon beasts in the surroundings had lost their heads. Yang Yi waved his right hand, and he obtained all their inner cores. The myriad world diagram and primordial pagoda vanished, and then Yang Yi and all the corpses appeared before everyone. All the human cultivators were flabbergasted when they saw all the corpses. Even Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei were stunned on the spot. All of them are dead. Yao Qing was a 5-world realm demon, and the other demons were at the 3 and 4 world realms. But all of them had been killed in less than 10 minutes? Everyone was shocked by this scene. Deathly silence filled the surroundings. Meanwhile, Yang Yi gazed at Xing Biqing. Let's go. Xing Biqing was stunned and said, Why? Let's head inside. Head inside the city. At this moment, countless behind her were surging with excitement. Enter the city. All of them wanted to enter the city. Yang Yi had raised their morale, and it could be said that the demon beast's morale was at its lowest. So, there wasn't a better time to enter the city. However, a powerful aura suddenly swept out from within the city, and then numerous demons leaped out from inside the city. Every one of them was a peak 5 world realm demon beast. There were 8 of them. Besides that, countless other demon beasts were charging out of the city. Besides that, Yang Yi and the others sensed a faint strand of pressure that enveloped all of them. Yang Yi shot a glance deep into the city and said, Let's retreat for now. He wasn't afraid, but his intuition told him that if they charged in, then besides experts on par with him, Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei, the rest would probably not survive. Xing Biqing fell silent for a moment, and then she nodded. Just like that, their group retreated. As for the demon beasts, they seemed to be afraid of something and didn't stop them. Once Yang Ye's group left, the demons carried the corpses outside the city back into the city. Meanwhile, a man walked onto the city walls. He gazed into the direction Xianxia's group had left toward and grinned. Interesting. As he spoke, he gazed at Yao Qing's corpse. A lion must use its full strength, even when hunting a rabbit. As soon as he finished speaking, he glanced at the surroundings and said, "Please give me your help." He flicked 200 world crystals into the air once he finished speaking. It didn't take long for Yao Qing's corpse to actually start healing rapidly at a visible rate. In less than 10 breaths of time, his corpse had healed back into one. Moreover, his soul instantly condensed and returned to his body as well. Around an hour later, Yao Qing opened his eyes. Yao Qing stood up and walked over to the man. "I underestimated my opponent." The man spoke indifferently. "What did you see?" Yao Qing was about to speak when the man added, "No matter what you saw, you can't say anything about it." Yao Qing was puzzled. "Why?" The man looked into the distance. "He knew that I entered that barrier of his, and so he chose to spare your life. It's a deal we made, so you'll be breaking the deal if you say anything about it." "But Lord Yao Yi," Yao Qing wanted to say something. The man shook his head. "Both humans and demons should keep their word. Not to mention that we aren't irreconcilable enemies, so it isn't necessary to go so far." He turned around and walked away. Yao Qing fell silent for a long time, and then he turned around and left. Thousands of kilometers away, Yang Yi shot a glance in War City's direction. Just as Yao Yi had said, Yang Yi hadn't fully killed Yao Qing and had left the latter alive. It was because he'd made a deal with Yao Yi. Actually, Yang Yi had been caught quite off guard when Yao Yi suddenly entered, but he couldn't be bothered about that at the time. If he was exposed, then so be it. Right when he was about to go all out and slaughter to his heart's content, Yao Yi had suddenly made a proposal. It was that he had to let Yao Qing live, and in return, Yao Yi would act like he didn't see anything. After giving it some consideration, Yang Yi agreed in the end. After all, he was here in Eternal Kingdom mainly to help Sword Scroll recover her main body. Now that he'd been able to leave safely, it was obvious that Yao Yi had kept his word. Xianxia's group returned to the mountain range from before. Meanwhile, the remaining humans throughout War Dimension were here. There were 5 top experts among them: Xing Biqing, Yi Zhibei, Leng Ao, Lu Ju, and Gu Nie. All of them were the strongest experts of the younger generation. At this moment, all of them were gathered together. The experts of the entire human race accepted them as their leader. As for Yang Yi, he didn't want to bother about all of this. After he made arrangements for Emoya and the others, he wanted to leave immediately. However, Yi Zhibei and Xing Biqing made him stay. According to them, he needed a golden talisman to leave the War Dimension, and they didn't have any right now. Actually, they probably did have some. However, they didn't want Yang Yi to leave right now. It wasn't that they sought to use him, but they felt that the human cultivators really needed his help. After giving it some thought, Yang Yi decided to stay. In any case, he really couldn't leave right now. However, if they asked him to help with the attack on the city, he would absolutely not do it. He wasn't here to get swept into all of this nonsense. Yang Yi remained alone at the side while Xing Biqing's group was in discussion. A long time passed before they dispersed, and then Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei went over to Yang Yi. Yang Yi gazed at them, and Xing Biqing said, "Brother Yi, do you really intend to leave?" Yang Yi nodded. She hesitated for a moment and said, "I can get a teleportation talisman for you, but will you return?" Would he return? Yang Yi thought for a moment and replied, "I'm not sure." He seemed to have thought of something and added, "Miss Biqing, is there any place here that sells divine treasures suitable for demon beasts to improve their cultivations?" For demon beasts. All the demon beasts in the primordial pagoda were at the peak of the 4-world realm. If they could consume a chaotic fruit or world-born fruit now, it wouldn't be difficult for them to attain the 5-world realm. But the problem was that after Snowy left, those trees started growing fruits exceptionally slowly. The worst part was that besides Snowy, those trees wouldn't allow anyone to get close to them, and they would attack anyone who got close. They only recognized Snowy. So, they had to wait until Snowy returned to consume those fruits and advance. but Snowy and Arya had only just left. No one knew how they were doing over there. Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei exchanged glances when they heard Yang Yi, and then Xing Biqing grinned. Brother Yi, you want to help that primal true dragon attain the 5-world realm? Yang Yi nodded. She spoke solemnly. There is a way, origin world pills. Origin world pills? Yang Yi asked. What's that? She explained. A medicinal pill eternal kingdom made specially for demon beasts, and it helps them advance in the limit breaker realm. However, they are extremely precious. Even in the demon race, only monstrous geniuses or those with extraordinary status are able to obtain one. It's very difficult for humans to obtain any. Yang Yi laughed bitterly. Then haven't you said all of that for nothing? She smiled. While it's difficult, it's not impossible. Yang Yi glanced at her. How? She smiled. Buy them. 300 world crystals should be enough to get one. 300. Yang Yi took a look inside the primordial pagoda, and there were around 400 in there. Some of them had been the world crystals Snowy left behind, and then the rest were either from killing people or the world crystals he obtained from going to the abyss with Xing Biqing. 400 were just enough to purchase one pill. It was absolutely expensive. It was the first time he felt quite poor. While it was expensive, Yang Yi still decided to buy one. So, he gazed at Xing Biqing. Where can I get one? She replied. An underground trade. Yang Yi frowned slightly. In the city? Xing Biqing smiled. Don't worry. The demon race wouldn't dare to destroy that place. It isn't my Xing clan that protects that place. It's another mysterious human cultivator. That person is in War Dimension too, but that person is a relatively special existence. Moreover, even the demon race participates in the trades there. No one cares who you are there once you've worn a black robe. Yang Yi thought for a moment and said, Then let's go. Xing Biqing said, We'll go with you. Yang Yi hesitated for a moment and nodded. Thanks. Just like that, they entered the city again. Of course, they snuck in. They arrived at the underground trade area, that street. People still had stalls there. Of course, Yang Yi didn't know if they were actually humans or demon beasts. This time, they were wearing black robes because it was part of the rules here. Yang Yi and the others looked around but didn't notice any origin world pills. Meanwhile, Xing Biqing walked over to the end of the street, and a hunched black-robed figure stood there. She flicked 3 world crystals to the hunched figure. The hunched figure took them and said, Go on, she said. Origin world pills. The black-robed figure fell silent for a long time and said, 350 world crystals each. It's fixed. 350. Xing Biqing frowned slightly and gazed at Yang Yi. The latter thought for a moment and asked, How many do you have? The hunched figure replied with a question. How much do you have? Yang Yi thought for a moment and gazed at Xing Biqing. Miss Biqing and Miss Jibei. I have something that you may be interested in. They exchanged glances. In the end, Xing Biqing asked, What is it? Yang Yi and the others went off to a corner, and then Yang Yi revealed a blood-red brush. The brush was the divine treasure he'd obtained after killing that expert from the Lung clan. Both of them were visibly moved when they saw it. Divine treasures were very, very precious. They exchanged glances. In the end, Xing Biqing said, 500 world crystals. While divine treasures were precious, they were only worth around 400 plus world crystals. After all, that amount of world crystals was sufficient to foster many Limitbreaker realm experts or even foster 3-5 world realm experts. Of course, divine treasures were priceless treasures on their own. So, 400 world crystals may not be able to purchase one. As for the price that Xing Biqing offered, Yang Yi was actually gaining a little from it. Yang Yi didn't say anything and just gave it to her. She took it and flicked a golden card to Yang Yi. Yang Yi asked, What is this? She replied, A world card. A card we use to store world crystals. Don't worry, so long as you're within Eternal Kingdom, you can use this to purchase things and withdraw actual world crystals. Because these cards were made by all the powers in Eternal Kingdom, and every power acknowledges it. So, you can use it to withdraw world crystals or buy things from any power. Yang Yi nodded. That's quite convenient. 500 world crystals combined with the 400 he had was 900. 900 was barely enough to purchase 3 origin world pills. Yang Yi grumbled. Why are these pills so expensive? She smiled. They are expensive because they can help demons advance into the 5-world realm. After all, that advancement is a huge gap that many demons are never able to traverse. But it gives them a very good chance to attain the 5-world realm. That is why it's so precious. 3 origin world pills. Yang Yi glanced at the world crystals in the primordial pagoda, and he realized they weren't really enough. He had to treat all of them equally and help them attain the 5-world realm. If only a few get it, the others would definitely be unhappy. Yang Yi thought for a moment and scanned the primordial pagoda. He had many more divine treasures like the Seal of Suppression, the Myriad World Diagram, the Universe Seal, the Sword Supreme, the Sword Precursor, the True Energy Mirror, Executor, the Primordial Pagoda. Of course, he would never sell them. He needed them and they weren't like that brush. Snowy had been improving them, and they surpassed ordinary divine treasures. It would be such a waste to sell them as ordinary divine treasures. Moreover, they had a certain level of closeness with him and Snowy. If he sold them, Snowy would definitely be sad. And he couldn't bear to part with them either. Sell the fruits? That was an absolute no. Those fruits were much more precious than the origin world pills. While those fruits couldn't be consumed right now, they would be priceless once they matured. After all, those fruits could improve the bloodline of demon beasts, and the origin world pills could only improve the cultivation. After thinking for a long time, Yang Yi realized that he really didn't have anything to sell. Should I sell my body? Yang Yi was stunned by this idea of his, and then he gazed at Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei. Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei were naturally unaware of what Yang Yi was thinking. Otherwise, they would definitely roll their eyes at him. Xing Biqing suddenly asked, Are 3 origin world pills not enough for you? Yang Yi laughed bitterly. They really aren't. She asked, How many more do you need? Yang Yi thought for a moment and replied, 3. He had 6 peak 4-world realm demons in the primordial pagoda. 3 more. Xing Biqing was put in quite a difficult position. If it was lesser, she could lend him some world crystals, but 3 were around 1,000 world crystals, and that really was too much. As if he knew what she was thinking, Yang Yi smiled. Miss Biqing, don't worry about it. If it's 3, then 3. They are enough for now. She flicked a spatial ring over to Yang Yi. She wasn't the only one, Yi Zhibei did the same as well. There were exactly 1,000 world crystals in total between the 2 spatial rings. Yang Yi was stunned. Huh, Xing Biqing said. Consider it a loan, so you must return them. Both of us are successors in our clans, so we have some authority to use a portion of the clan's resources. However, even we have to return what we take. Xing Biqing laughed bitterly. A month? If we can't return it in a month, we will be punished according to the rules of the clan. Yang Yi shook his head, and then he passed the spatial rings back to them. 3 are enough for me right now. I can't put you in such a difficult position. Xing Biqing smiled. It will be all right if you return them to us in a month. 1 month. Yang Yi laughed bitterly. If Snowy was here, then it wouldn't be very difficult to accomplish that, but Snowy wasn't here. Without Snowy, besides stealing, he really didn't have another way to earn 1,000 world crystals in a month. Even if he stole, he may not be able to steal that much. Meanwhile, Yi Zhibei suddenly said, Just use it first and think about it later. Xing Biqing nodded. Get the origin world pills first. Yang Yi hesitated for a moment and nodded. He'd decided that if he really couldn't get enough world crystals, he would pay with a fruit. In any case, he had many of them, and Snowy could grow more. They went to the old man again, and Xing Biqing said, 6 origin world pills. We'll make the deal if you have the goods. 6. The old man looked up slightly, fell silent for quite a while, and then said, Show me. Xing Biqing gazed at Yang Yi, and the latter withdrew 3 spatial rings. There were around 2,000 world crystals there. Needless to say, it was a huge amount of wealth. The old man said, Wait a moment. He turned around and left. Yang Yi put the spatial rings away and glanced at the surroundings. Is it safe? Xing Biqing replied. It is. Yang Yi was quite surprised. Are you that sure? She smiled. No one has ever broken the rules here. Yang Yi spoke softly. Perhaps it has been broken, but the people who know of it are dead. Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei frowned slightly. Yang Yi smiled. I'm not just letting my thoughts run wild. It's just that years of cruel experience has told me that there is no such thing as absolute rules. Even if rules exist, it's built upon the fact that both sides possess equivalent strength. If there is no balance in strength, do you think a tiger would care about rules with a goat? Xing Biqing fell silent for a long time and said, Then let's see if rules exist here. Yang Yi nodded. He always prepared for the worst. Only by doing that could he avoid being taken by surprise, and he would never be disappointed. Time trickled by. Around an hour passed, and fewer people remained on the streets. Another hour passed, and there were no people left. Only two black-robed figures remained behind their stalls. Another few breaths of time passed, and then one of the black-robed figures waved his right hand. He seemed to have put something away, and then he left satisfied. Only a single black-robed figure remained. Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei's faces were gloomy, and no one knew what they were thinking. Yang Yi smiled and remained silent. There was kindness in this world, but there was usually more evil. Meanwhile, the hunched black-robed figure appeared before them. Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei became vigilant and were ready to act at any moment. Suddenly, the hunched man flicked a spatial ring to Yang Yi. Yang Yi glanced at it, and then asked Xing Biqing to have a look. She nodded slightly. There's 6 of them. Yang Yi glanced at the hunched man and flicked the 3 spatial rings over. The hunched man didn't say anything. He just glanced at them and put them away. Yang Yi smiled and gazed at Xing Biqing. Let's go. Suddenly, an invisible barrier appeared in the surroundings, and then it locked down the entire street. Yang Yi chuckled when he saw this. Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei's faces turned utterly gloomy at the sight of this. Obviously, someone planned to break the rules. Xing Biqing gazed at the hunched man. What? You plan to break the rules? The hunched man replied indifferently. We made a fair trade. Did I break any rules? Xing Biqing spoke coldly. Then what's all of this? The hunched man shook his head. This has nothing to do with me. It's your problem. Xing Biqing spoke solemnly. This is your territory, yet it's not your business? Are you joking? The hunched man replied indifferently. It is our territory, but it's dawn right now. Anything that happens here is none of our business during this period. Yang Yi gazed at Xing Biqing. Is that true? Xing Biqing had an extremely unsightly expression beneath her robe. She'd actually forgotten about this. There was a rule here that it was closed at dawn, just like the stores in the outside world which had rest times. But it still didn't make sense. Because those people on the streets hadn't left when it was time for the place to close. They had left in advance. They had left more than an hour in advance. So, someone was clearly clearing the area. Moreover, the old man had intentionally delayed until now, so it was obvious something was off. Xing Biqing fell silent for a short while and gazed at Yang Yi. You're correct. Yang Yi chuckled and glanced at the surroundings. A black-robed man was still seated cross-legged nearby. Yang Yi ignored the man and said, 6 origin world pills is a huge amount of wealth. He waved his hand, and the ring they were in appeared in front of him. Yang Yi pointed at the ring. They are right here. Come get them. All right, I'm coming. A voice resounded from the shadows, and then a black-robed man with a pair appeared before them. Peak 5 World Realm expert. He wasn't alone, and there were 2 other black-robed men behind him. All of them were Peak 5 World Realm experts. As soon as he finished speaking, the man's spear shot straight at Yang Yi. It was like a bolt of lightning, and its powerful might shot straight for Yang Yi's group. Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei were about to counterattack when Yang Yi suddenly vanished on the spot. A sword howl resounded, and then 2 flying swords shot by. Hiss! Hiss! The flying swords instantly sliced through the pressure created by the spear, and they blasted the spear away as well. The swords didn't slow down at all as they instantly arrived before the black-robed man. Suddenly, the man took a step back, and then a black vortex formed in the space before him. The vortex instantly swept both the swords into it. Meanwhile, a sword suddenly arrived. Hiss! It sliced through the black vortex, and the black-robed man was even blasted backward. The swords returned to the sword gourd by Xianxia's waist, but they shot out again just a moment later. Hiss! Hiss! The black-robed man with the spear was shocked. At the critical moment, he stretched out his right hand and made a grasping motion. A spear condensed into form there. A moment later, he swept the spear forward. The sweep emanated an extraordinarily powerful aura that seemed capable of sweeping through an army. Clang! Clang! It stopped both of Xianxia's swords, but it only took a moment for Xianxia to appear before him. Meanwhile, Xianxia grabbed the swords and swung them. Dual swords. Xianxia could use dual swords. He didn't want to expose too many trump cards, so he hadn't utilized the sword domain or his bloodline, nor had he used executor. His dual swords descended. Hiss! The spear was chopped into two, and the black-robed man was sliced into three. Even his soul hadn't been able to escape. After he slaughtered the black-robed man, Xianxia didn't stop. The swords entered the sword gourd, and then they shot forward a moment later. The other two black-robed men were shocked and about to flee, but the flying swords were even faster than them. Hiss! The swords pierced through their foreheads. All of them were dead. Xianxia waved his right hand, and 3 spatial rings appeared in his grasp. He didn't look at them and just gazed at the hunched man. The hunched man was just standing there in silence. Xianxia walked slowly toward the hunched man. Suddenly, a powerful aura swept out from the hunched black-robed man. He wasn't a 5-world realm expert, but he wasn't at the Lord Realm either. He should be said to be boundlessly close to the Lord Realm, or perhaps, he was suppressing his cultivation. Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei went over to Xianxia's side, and Xing Biqing shook her head slightly. Forget it. We haven't lost anything. The hunched black-robed man turned around and walked away. Suddenly, Xianxia stabbed his sword into the ground. Boom! The ground instantly cracked apart. The hunched man stopped moving. Xianxia looked up at the hunched black-robed man and laughed fiercely. Forget it? No, not at all. I can't accept this. Since I refuse to accept this, someone will have to pay with his life. Favorite rules. At most times, if the rules were fair and others abided by them, then he would do the same. However, if others didn't, then he would absolutely not. Treating him with double standards? Never. Xianxia walked slowly toward the hunched man with his sword in hand. Moreover, a black diagram flashed out of Xianxia's body, and it instantly enveloped him and the hunched man. He isolated the world from them. Only Xianxia and the hunched man remained within the myriad world diagram. The hunched man suddenly asked, "You want to kill me?" Xianxia didn't waste his breath and just transformed into a ray of light that shot forward. The hunched man suddenly stretched out his right hand and made a light grasping motion at Xianxia from afar. In an instant, a ray of dark red flames enveloped Xianxia. Moreover, the air throughout the area within the myriad world diagram was incinerated by these flames. Besides that, at the instant the flames appeared, the myriad world diagram suddenly started to tremble as if it was unable to endure the might of these flames. Suddenly, a sword stabbed out from behind the flames. As soon as the sword appeared, the flames around Xianxia were instantly sliced up into countless sparks. Executor! The hunched man spoke abruptly with a voice that carried undisguised surprise. Meanwhile, 2 flying swords shot over. They were extremely fast, but they were blasted away by a wave of invisible force before they could even reach the hunched man. The hunched man stomped his right foot down lightly. Bang! The space before him surged and rippled like a raging river and swept toward Xianxia. Xianxia didn't retreat but advanced instead, and he swung his sword with both hands. As soon as his sword descended, the space before him was sliced open. However, the energy didn't vanish. Moreover, the space all around him started to wriggle as if there was something in there. Rumble! Explosions resounded incessantly. Yang Yi was pushed backward repeatedly while blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. The hunched man spoke abruptly. "Kill me? You don't seem to be capable of that. You?" The hunched man's voice stopped abruptly at this point. It was because a strand of mysterious energy had suddenly appeared here. The sword domain. As soon as the sword domain appeared, Yang Yi instantly succeeded at forcefully suppressing the space within the sword domain. At the same time, two flying swords suddenly appeared before the hunched man. Right at this moment, two black shadows abruptly appeared around the hunched man, and these black shadows blocked Yang Ye's swords. Yang Ye's swords couldn't move an inch forward when facing those black shadows. However, Yang Yi had already appeared before the hunched man. A sword slashed down. 11 overlapped heaven rends. Moreover, they were enhanced by his bloodline, sword domain, and physical strength. As soon as this attack started descending, the hunched man had slowly clenched both his hands. The attack descended. Boom! A rumbling explosion resounded, and then a black shadow was blasted away. It was the hunched man. At the instant he was blasted away, two swords shot toward him. Hiss! Hiss! The swords pierced through his body, but the hunched man's body mysteriously turned ethereal. A clone. Yang Yi swiftly spun around, and countless strands of black energy were shooting down at him like a rain of arrows. Yang Yi stomped his right foot down. Shatter! As soon as he said that, everything seemed to freeze within the sword domain. A moment later, countless rays of sword energy crisscrossed throughout the sword domain. Hiss! 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 Along with a string of horrifying hissing, the black energy was obliterated. Meanwhile, two flying swords suddenly appeared at a corner to Yang Ye's right. Bang! Bang! Two muffled explosions resounded there, and then a shadow was pushed backward repeatedly, but it quickly vanished again. Meanwhile, Yang Yi dodged to the side and swung his sword. It instantly struck a black shadow. It was the hunched black-robed man. Needless to say, the hunched man was extremely fast, and his movement technique was very mysterious. However, he may not have realized that he was within Yang Ye's sword domain. In the sword domain, Yang Yi could see everything. So, as far as Yang Yi was concerned, the speed of the hunched man's movement technique was a joke in here. In an instant, he suppressed the hunched man. Two flying swords, executor, and the ability to analyze within the sword domain. The hunched man couldn't fight back at all, and it only took a few breaths of time for injuries to cover his body. Moreover, he even lost one of his arms to Yang Yi. However, his strength was extraordinary indeed, and Yang Yi couldn't kill him no matter what he tried. Under these conditions, the black-robed man could be said to have no choice but to constantly defend himself, and he had no room to counterattack. Outside the myriad world diagram, Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei had gloomy expressions on their faces as they gazed at the area ahead. It was enveloped by a mysterious barrier, and they couldn't see anything inside of it. However, they could sense the violent fluctuations of energy coming from within it. Obviously, it was definitely a very intense battle. Suddenly, the black-robed man who was seated cross-legged at the side stood up. They gazed at him. It was clearly quite strange that the man hadn't left earlier. So they remained vigilant against him at all times. The black-robed man spoke abruptly. "He has won!" They turned around, and the barrier created by the myriad world diagram vanished. After that, Yang Yi and the hunched old man appeared before them. But at this moment, the hunched old man was nailed to the ground by two swords, and his head wasn't on his neck anymore. It was on the ground to his side. He was dead. As for the hunched man's spatial ring, it was in Yang Ye's possession now. There were 2,700 world crystals in it. 2,000 were from him, and the 700 should belong to the hunched man. Besides that, there was a divine treasure, a pitch-black mirror. The black energy from before had come from the mirror. He'd made a killing. Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei exchanged glances when they saw the hunched man's corpse, and there was obvious shock in their eyes. Even if the hunched man wasn't at the Lord Realm, he was absolutely not very far from it. Yet now he was lying there, dead. Countless years of bitter cultivation had been lost to greed. As they say, there was always risk when seeking wealth, but how many lose their lives to that risk? Yang Yi put his swords away, ignored the corpse, and gazed at them. "Let's go." They nodded and were about to leave, but the black-robed man spoke abruptly. "Leave the spatial ring behind." Yang Yi stopped and gazed at the black-robed man, and the latter said, "He broke the rules, and you killed him because he deserves death. But the divine treasure and 700 world crystals within the spatial ring belong to our organization and not him. Besides that, those 2,000 world crystals were part of the trade between you and our organization. It was a fair trade, and you've obtained the origin world pills. So, those 2,000 world crystals belong to us too." Yang Yi smiled. "He was part of your organization. But while he broke the rules, you did nothing about it, right?" The black-robed man replied, "That occurred outside of our business time, so we have no right to do anything about it." Yang Yi smiled. "What about now? You've come for me because it's your business hours now? Do you even have the right to meddle in my affairs?" The black-robed man walked over to Yang Ye's group and said, "We act very fairly and never break the rules here. But the precondition is that others don't break our rules." "Ha ha!" Yang Yi suddenly roared with laughter. "Don't you think that's laughable? When there's something wrong with one of your people, it's his problem, and we should be considered as your customers. Why should we, your customers, take responsibility for the issues with your people? Or perhaps you think customers like us are easy to bully, and we have to bear with it even if we are bullied, right?" The black-robed man spoke indifferently. "You've killed him. We aren't trying to avenge him, and that is very fair." Yang Yi smiled. "I killed him and obtained his possessions. They are part of my spoils from the battle. I think it's very fair." The black-robed man? "Is there no room for discussion?" Yang Yi thought for a moment and gazed at Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei. "Leave first. I'll have a proper chat with them. If they were here, he would have things to worry about. It wasn't that they were weak, and they were absolutely far from weak. If they used their true strength, even he wouldn't be absolutely certain of being able to defeat them. After all, they were the future patriarchs of two huge clans, so they definitely had trump cards, and those trump cards were definitely very powerful. The reason he asked them to leave was because he wanted to run wild without worrying about anything." Yi Zhibei and Xing Biqing exchanged glances and shook their heads. Xing Biqing gazed at Yang Yi. "Since we came together, we'll leave together." Yang Yi wanted to say something else, but he didn't after giving it a moment of thought. Both of them were very assertive women, so saying more would just be a waste of time. Yang Yi walked over to the black-robed man. They were very close to each other as he looked the black-robed man in the eyes. "Kill me and the spatial ring is yours. Now I'm standing right here. Please kill me." Haughty. Needless to say, Yang Yi was very, very haughty. He was being so haughty that both Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei couldn't help but shoot a glance at him. "Please kill me." They had a new understanding of Yang Yi at this moment. While he seemed nice and easy to talk to, once he became difficult, he was no different than a madman. As far as they were concerned, Yang Yi was the type of person who would be nice when you were nice, and he would be terrible when you were being bad. Yang Yi had a violent temper, especially when he encountered something unreasonable. If something wasn't reasonable, he naturally planned to destroy it with his sword. He knew how to be reasonable, but he was very well aware that at most times, one had to use the fist before the other party would be willing to reason with you. The black-robed man before Yang Yi fell silent. "Please kill me." The person before him was absolutely not ordinary, but was his organization an ordinary one? He knew he couldn't accept a loss of over 2,700 world crystals. So the black-robed man attacked. Hiss! The space around Yang Yi cracked open, and a strong feeling of being torn apart swept through Yang Ye's body. Yang Yi was about to attack when Yi Zhibei suddenly took a step forward, and the space in the surroundings flickered. After that, a snow-white whip flashed from down above them. Bang! The black-robed man before Yang Yi was blasted away, but the whip swiftly reappeared in front of the black-robed man, and it contained extremely overbearing force. The black-robed man took a small step back and twisted his right hand. A small pitch-black shield appeared in his palm. Bang! An explosion resounded, and then Yi Jibei's whip was blasted away by the shield. Meanwhile, the black-robed man tossed the shield forward. Hiss! Hiss! The shield spun swiftly, as if it was about to slice open the world around it. Yang Yi was about to act when Xing Biqing stopped him and said, "Trust her." Yang Yi hesitated for a moment and nodded, and then he gazed at Yi Jibei. Suddenly, Yi Jibei leaped up into the air, and the white whip in her grasp shot forward like a bolt of lightning. Hiss! The whip tore through the air and shot at the black-robed man like an arc of light. Meanwhile, the pitch-black shield appeared once more and expanded in midair. It became around 10 times larger. This time, the shield failed to stop the whip, and the whip blasted the shield away before striking the black-robed man. Bam! The black-robed man was blasted away. But that wasn't the end of it. Yi Jibei waved her hand lightly, and the whip danced about like an agile serpent that instantly pierced the black-robed man's chest. However, the black-robed man instantly vanished without a trace. Yi Jibei's expression remained calm and composed as she suddenly released her grip, and then a ray of golden light swept out from behind her. Bang! A black figure was blasted away. It was the black-robed man. Yi Jibei was about to attack again when a wave of invisible pressure appeared in the surroundings, and then the space here suddenly condensed. Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings with a cold smile on his face. The person hiding in the shadows didn't do more and stopped upon stopping Yi Jibei. After that, a man in a violet robe appeared before them. The man nodded slightly to them and said, "Oh, the eldest young miss of the Yi clan, the eldest young miss of the Xing clan, and Brother Yang. I'm Zhu Yuanxian, and I'm in charge of this place." Xing Biqing spoke indifferently. "You're the master of this underground trading area?" Zhu Yuanxian shook his head slightly. "I'm just an insignificant manager." Xing Biqing glanced at him and asked, "So how do you plan to deal with this?" Zhu Yuanxian smiled. "I know everything that happened here today. It's someone of our organization who was tempted by extraordinary wealth, and it's something our organization should take responsibility for. As for you, all of you may leave." Yang Yi asked, "You don't want the spatial ring anymore?" Zhu Yuanxian glanced at Yang Yi and smiled. "We did want it back. However, my lord said that since it's you, Brother Yang, we'll treat it as a gift to you." Yang Yi frowned slightly. "Your lord knows me?" Zhu Yuanxian smiled. "That isn't something I know." Yang Yi didn't say anything else. He just gazed at Xing Biqing and Yi Jibei. "Let's go." They nodded. Just like that, they left the street, and Zhu Yuanxian didn't stop them. Once they left, Zhu Yuanxian pondered deeply for a moment, and then he looked toward a certain direction. "My lord, we took quite a huge loss today." A voice came from the pitch-black corner of the street. Obviously, Zhu Yuanxian hesitated to say more. Meanwhile, the voice added, "If we didn't let them go, they may have blasted this place apart." Zhu Yuanxian frowned slightly. "They would dare to?" The voice explained, "Those two young misses may have some worries to hold them back, because while they don't fear us, they don't want to make enemies for their clans. But it's different for him. He won't care about all of that. There is no such thing as fear in his world." Zhu Yuanxuan's frown deepened. "My lord? You know him?" The voice fell silent for a long time before it replied, "I do, in person too. However, it was a very long time ago." Yang Ye's group didn't return to War City immediately, and they went to an abandoned hall instead. Yang Yi flicked 2 spatial rings over to them. They glanced at them and were shocked because each of them contained 1,000 world crystals. They gazed at Yang Yi with bewilderment, and Yang Yi smiled. "I've gotten 6 origin world pills, so I've earned a lot already. Both of you came here with me, and you even lent me money and helped, so you should make some too." Meanwhile, Xing Biqing flicked the spatial ring over to Yang Yi. 1,000. We'll just take back our 500 each. Would we be friends if we have to be compensated for helping? Unless you don't think of us as friends." Yang Yi shook his head and didn't insist. He just took the spatial ring. Both of their expressions eased up when they saw him accept it. Yang glanced at the surroundings and said, "You plan to attack and retake the city?" Xianxia nodded slightly. "There's a spirit vein in this city, and it can be described as the best in the war dimension. Moreover, some of our businesses are here, and we don't want to lose them." Yang fell silent. Meanwhile, Yijibei suddenly asked, "Do you have any ideas?" Yang nodded slightly. "Would you mind if I say a few words?" Xianxia smiled. "It depends what you say." Yang smiled. "Allow me to be honest. Both of your cultivations aren't sufficiently solid." They fell silent. They were both at the peak of the five-world realm, or they should be described as being at the half-step lord realm. However, as far as Yang was concerned, their realms of cultivation weren't very true. Xianxia said, "Go on." If it was anyone else, they would definitely be unwilling to accept it. However, it was Yang, so they had no choice but to accept it. Because Yang was merely at the three-world realm, but his strength wasn't any weaker to theirs. Yang thought for a moment and said, "I'm not trying to lecture you, but in my opinion, I'm sure you've consumed too many natural treasures. The natural treasures themselves aren't the problem. Even I have consumed them. However, if you consume too much, it's equivalent to making your cultivation grow rapidly before the time is right. But it's obvious that the seniors in your clan are aware of the issues this presents. Otherwise, both of you wouldn't be suppressing your cultivations." They gazed at him and waited for him to continue. Yang said, "I have some thoughts. You carry a clan on your shoulders, and you think about the clan whenever you do anything. That isn't wrong, but I feel that there should be a limit for everything. If you attach too much importance to your clans, it will make you fearful and hesitant to do everything, and that isn't worth it. Don't you think so too?" They fell silent for a long time before Xianxia said, "Are you talking about what happened just now?" At that time, they didn't want to fight because they didn't want to cause trouble for their clans. Yang nodded frankly. "What I'm trying to say is you are you. You were not born to serve your clans, and you do not live for your clans either. Conversely, your clans will only prosper if you live well. Shackles. You have responsibility, and that is right, but you should not allow some things to become your shackles. Invisible shackles that restrain your nature and heart. Take a tiger, for example. If that tiger is raised by a person, then even if it has the viciousness of a tiger, it wouldn't have the skill of a wild tiger. Independent cultivators don't have many resources available to them, but an independent cultivator who truly grows into an expert usually possesses strength that's extremely terrifying. Shackles. Yang saw the shackles that bound them during the incident just now. It was never wrong to have a sense of responsibility, but if that sense was too strong, it would make someone always be hesitant and fearful. It was like placing shackles on themselves and their heart. For example, when someone is right up in your face and scolding you, you're actually thinking about whether doing anything would lead to you getting hit, or getting scolded by your parents, or losing the fight and getting beaten up. Or perhaps it was like thinking about failure and what to do about it before even trying to do something. At most times, these shackles were a form of denial of the self. If the heart was overcome, anything would be very simple before a person. Just like how Yang was when he was in the Sword Sect. He was still a labor disciple, but he wanted to become an outer court disciple. At that time, it was clearly a fool's dream in the eyes of the other labor disciples. But so many years later, those labor disciples had turned to dust. But he was still alive now. Yang followed his heart. If someone cursed at him, he would dare to hit them. As for whether he could win the fight, who cared? Fight first. As they say, if you're poor, then beg. So long as you survive, you'll still have a chance to make something of yourself. Yang entered the primordial pagoda once he finished speaking. The important matter at hand for him was to help the dragon and the others attain the five-world realm.